Right. I'm gonna get a stretch.
Bright and sunny and Bim.
Hey,
Bright
that's
and
all right.
oh, this is good to hear. This is always good to hear when it's
That's nice.
bright and sunny and been just stretching, Full exercise filled week. Exercise filled week.
Gotta lock you in today too. Anyhow.
Well,
Oh, sure.
we take it. We take it. Don't be, don't jealous. We
You say you had
on
an
you Spurs.
exercise filled week.
Exercise field. We can get to that. Exercise field. Yeah, man. I back on it. Sun's out. I back out on the road.
Listen to the man. Listen to the
Anyway, hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to another
You can
episode.
look on Strava here, Mark.
Yeah. Check me on Strava, man. Active this week. Welcome to another episode of the living room. Thank you so much for joining us and spending your afternoon here with us. Well, depending on where you are. It could be evening if you're here in the UK, afternoon if you're somewhere on the east coast of the US or in the Caribbean as well. So thank you guys for joining us. If this is your first time you're here with us in the living room, this is where we have good old Caribbean conversations. As usual, it's me, Andre, with my good friends Philip and Mark. And we just like to have good Caribbean conversations. If you haven't as yet and you're with us here on We Global, just hit like, hit follow us on our Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, and you can get all the news and all the different discussions that we like to chat about. So let's get straight to it. How are we doing, guys?
You see anything, Phil?
Are you still searching?
I'm you still searching.
You're still here scrolling.
You can see some good runs, but of course I don't put the gym on Strava, So when they do the gym,
don't pay him money, Phil.
you see.
No, you believe me, man.
He's making it up.
Says the man that on salads. We have to get that conversation, The man that on salads, right?
Salad's working, man.
Is it working?
Man, salad's working. How you mean? Hey,
Hey, how you doing? The work? How you mean the working? What you mean?
they're not on Strava, so
My man is a man.
There's no salad section on Strava.
Of course not. But my man is a man that's good at Nando's for salad.
man, leave it
That
out.
is a
Leave it out.
classic.
Leave it out.
The man is what? The man will convince me that he went to Nando's for salad. Man.
Leave it out, man. Leave it out. That's getting ridiculous now.
we ridiculous. My man, that was your story, not ours. We just picking up to help you. But man.
So what you're doing, though? We ain't see the evidence. So just tell me what you're doing.
No, my man. Look, if you hit up my Strava, you can see the evidence. And they had 2 good runs this week, but I had 3. This is the first time I start back running again now in months, because I was like, throughout the winter, I couldn't be bothered, man. The place was too cold. But the sun come out. Huh?
What distance you were doing?
I just do a 5 one day. The first day you do a 5, but that is exuberance. First day out and you just persevere through. And then the second day, you're going out, do another 5, man. But even hit 6 or 7, but by the time you hit 2K, you're panting, man. You're panting. So I was like, all right, let me just chalk this up to a little warm down. So I just do a little 3.5, but then I back out on the 5 again. So it's on and off. So it's 1 day running, 1 day gym. Running, gym. That's how I doing it, man.
That sounds good.
5 minutes. No, see? Where the band button is. They got a band button? Because I could put a band button
Spot on, Angela. Spot on.
A 5-minute running, sorry?
No.
Sprinting.
But the problem for me is that I just go by distance if I'm running. Although somebody at work was telling me, no, don't do that. If you get 15 minutes, go and have a run. If you get 20, go and have. But I'd be like, man, that just seems like a waste of time, because by the time you run 15 minutes, you now start to get into it and thing. But I probably should try that route, because to me, if I don't have the time to do a 5 or 10, sometimes I don't get out.
Easy.
So,
Listen to the man.
So, but
the 3 F's are running, and if you're doing fast, far, frequent, if you're doing 1 out of 3, you're good. If you're doing 2 out of 3, you're exceptional.
fast,
far.
Yeah, I was at 2 out of 3.
Wow.
I'm getting faster. This is last year.
So,
man, my goal was to run. It was a 5K in 25 minutes. That was my thing. And by the time I stopped, I was running 25.3 on a 5K and thing.
So
Carbon wouldn't know about these kind of things there.
I started running a long time. I started running a long time ago, man. But,
Carmen's going walks. He's going walks.
Of course.
Walks. Nothing
Brisk
wrong.
walk is
Don't judge me.
The walk is good. Brisk walk.
F is brisk.
Don't judge
But
me
you know,
because I'm walking, man. Man, what's wrong with walking, man? Come
F
on
is
now.
brisk. F is brisk. But yeah, I ain't judging you, man. Yeah, man. So
So
I
this
back
year,
on the
we
exercise.
this year we're doing 5K in 25 minutes.
Yeah,
Tell
great.
him you're
Of course you
Lord.
would, Adrian. Of course you would.
So and I see you pick up some gardening this week. That one I saw.
You see,
I saw that one, man. I see you.
I was to take a picture, I was to take a picture. Yeah, man, I made my flower beds, my raised beds. By the way, let's get it right. I
Raised
made
for
my,
bed.
my own raised beds and stuff, and I got some stuff up there planted. I put down the carrots today. I
Aye.
waited to see because we had, believe it or not, we wake up and had snow when it was Wednesday.
Man, this place crazy.
At the end of March, and we had snow Wednesday. So I was like, wait, hang on, we're going on here. So I waited a little bit. All you need is 150 minutes per week. Shoot. That's about 100 minutes more than March do at the moment, Adrian. There.
So that there no Adrian. So that there no.
150 minutes per week.
That
minimum.
sounds like a lot, though.
Wow.
But actually, no, not really. I do that in a few runs. That's it.
So we're
Yeah.
gonna be pulling out of this garden when we hook up in the summer, man. Cause I look, I on the vegetables, so
I know
We
you're
know,
a
we
veggie.
know.
I
We
expect
know.
to see a big salad from you when I
There's a
come
little
down
bit
the
of
road.
you influence there. Cause I know you put on your flower bed, you begs and
Every
stuff.
year, man, every year.
you've got. So I decided this year, let me try it. But every year I keep saying I can do it, and I never do it. So I just tell myself, this year I doing it. So I got the beets because I like my raw vegetables. So I got my beetroot in.
Phil,
I got my lettuce
This is a
in.
man that only
I
discovered
got my
vegetables
carrots in.
2 years
peppers.
2 years ago, I know.
Listen. The point is idea. What's wrong with y'all? Idea now.
It's
Idea now. So I put down the carrots today now. So I made a tall raised bed, a high raised bed for the carrots to be able to go down, So I got the carrots. So I might put a few heads of lettuce in between because the rule is right. If you plant something that going down, you could also mix it with something that coming up.
Jesus, bread.
Just
Lord.
So
So you're doing some crop rotation.
Man,
well,
listen.
you can put different things in, right? You can put different things, so you don't limit the box. So you got carrots as well. I might put a couple heads of lettuce in between there, through the middle. And if you got beetroot, I put down a little some peppers on either side of the root. So the peppers. That's another conversation. Maybe better do a gardening show, yeah. This, yeah.
Yo, that ain't a bad show, That ain't a bad show at all.
Hey, do a hard-
I'm looking forward to the salad, though, for sure.
Yeah, huh?
I'm looking forward to the salad, man.
It can taste good, man. It can taste good. Don't worry about that. So
Beets,
we all get
beets,
what's huh?
I said once you got beat some there, man.
Beets, man. I like grated beets. That is how I usually
Yeah,
raw beets. I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
eat.
Beets is
I
a
don't
good
like
thing.
beets cooked. It's changed the taste, so I don't
It
like it.
is. Yeah.
What y'all get to this week, man? Yeah, wait. First of all, fully recovered, Carmen.
Well, I had my first negative test when it was, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, but there's a difference between the negative tests and how
I
you
feel I'm
feeling.
feeling okay, man. Although a nurse tried to tell me this morning if I get a negative lateral flow, that is not a real test. You need to go and get a PCR. I was like,
PCR.
it's not that good, man. Good.
Okay.
But
So
I be
you
feeling okay. I felt pretty okay this week, to be honest.
So you staying home for this week coming?
No,
or
I'm
you
back
going
on the
in
road
the
tomorrow, man. Back on the road tomorrow, man. Can't be staying home no more, man.
office? All
Every-
right.
The family's back out, so I feel okay and I feel well enough to return. So I'm off.
All right. That is good. That is good. Sounding
Yeah,
good.
man.
Sounding
Take
like
your
you
time. Take your time.
good. All right, so did y'all well, two things that catch my attention this week. One, this stuff with Jamaica going against CARICOM and electing their own person for the headed CARICOM secretary of the Commonwealth Secretariat, and I like this despite CARICOM agreeing to go back with Barron Scotland again. What y'all think, man?
Well, I got two opinions. One, I always get a little bit annoyed with my Jamaican friends because they always seem to, when it comes to CARICOM, they always seem to have a dissenting view, don't seem to really want to toe the line. And then the other view I have on this is more about Barnett Scotland, actually, because I think Barnett Scotland has not clothed herself in any
Not
great
squeaky clean.
any great glory with the scandals surrounding her over the last couple of months. So I think you got to look at those two things and weigh them up. But when it comes to if CARICOM is making a decision, Well, I think that we should get behind the decision, and that is the decision, But there just seem to be this fighting now that is happening within CARICOM for a little bit of a power grab. It would look like to me.
Well,
Well,
maybe Jamaica just has a different. Well, they obviously have a different agenda when it
but
comes to
yeah, but
CARICOM.
even if in the meeting, because as you say, we all know there's a bit of what's the word, history regarding
yes.
Baroness Scotland, and not all of it is very nice or flattering.
No.
But if as a group you agree, irrespective of if Jamaica dissented, I assume that in the meeting maybe they did dissent in the meeting, but the rest agreed. Are you part of the community or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just go and keep your mouth shut, or or vote for somebody else if you want to vote for somebody else, but don't go and nominate someone else.
Yeah.
It just seemed wrong.
It feels like a very provocative move, to go and say this is who we want, this is who we are nominating. It feels very provocative to me, and I'm very disappointed actually.
Well, you know me.
Power play.
I feel it's time you gotta ask Jamaica a question. When it in
When
or
it
when
in
it out?
or when it out? That is the question.
Simple. That's the way how I feel about it. I like when it in or when it out. Forget the lip service. You in or out. And if you out, well, go on with your business.
Go.
No worries at all.
But it's a bit sad. It's a bit sad that it has come to that particular culmination, to be honest. But hopefully we will see that situation would rectify itself in with some unity. We need unity in the CARICOM.
I know what unity. I
man.
see Scarrett and everybody cussing because obviously everybody cussing. So I don't know how they can come up with this one here now, but we will
Hi,
see.
Teresa.
Hey, Teresa. We will see how that one play out. And then, of course, there's the Oscars. And the slap that has reverberated all across the world. Although I gotta confess, it didn't look like F.E.H.T. to me. That is just me. It didn't look so to me. That is every time I see it,
So you feel it was staged?
I don't know if it was staged.
Sound effects.
I don't know if it was, but they really had, because if you look at it, Will Smith kind of stamp a little bit, right? When Chris Rock made a joke, referring to her starring in G.I. Jane 2, obviously a reference to her head being bald. I think Jada Pinkett has alopecia. Chris Rock says in some forums it says that he didn't know that. Either way, in my opinion, it didn't warrant that. And it just didn't look so. But I don't know the red mist that descend after Will Smith and sit back down. It seemed like whatever might have been choreographed or seemed like it could have been went out the window when he went and sit back down. And I think it's when he doubled down and repeat what he said twice is what really probably made me say, oh, maybe it wasn't staged then. Or maybe it wasn't something that that Chris knew was going to happen. So that's just the interesting thing there.
I think Angela just hit this one on the head, because this is the part of that story that I found funny this week when one of the parliamentarians said this.
Oh, yes.
Another one.
Yeah, Chris
I
Rock
was going to give you a Chris Rock special if you didn't hear it.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, but I guess we'll wait and see what become of it. In my opinion, it was the joke didn't warrant it. Was the joke funny or not? Was it a bit offensive? Maybe. But just because you get offended by something, that don't mean that you go up and you get it by the Oscars and slap somebody. And
like
everything about it was annoying.
Or anywhere.
Yeah.
Or anywhere.
Yeah, it seemed like a complete overreaction to me. And it to be honest, it's one of them stories that I just look past this week, because just a lot of Hollywood hype, man.
It's Hollywood hype, but it's just the amount of, it had just a lot of, get rid from the Hollywood hype and stuff, because I actually like Will Smith.
I do as well. I do as well.
At the same time, I always used to tell myself there are two people in Hollywood that I see that always seem to be acting no matter what they're doing. And one of them is Tom Cruise, and the other one is Will Smith. No matter the situation, it always seems an act. It never seemed like a real conversation, no matter what, And it's just good. It's just branding, how they brand themselves and always on camera, whatever it is. So that's how I always view Will Smith. So it's like, but clearly there's a lot going on there with he and Jada and all that kind of stuff. That a lot more than than the joke,
Yeah.
so to speak. The joke ain't really the reason that he get up there slapping. I don't mind people talking about, oh, he defending his wife and all that kind of stuff. Bare joke. Will Smith was defending himself.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But I
Rather,
felt it was a whole story episode.
yeah, it's a sorry episode. And the annoying thing about it is that you had, I don't know if it's for the first time, but you had the guy that actually produced the Oscars was a black guy. The next award that Chris Rock was producing was the one that Questlove won. And if you haven't watched it as yet, Phil, you will absolutely love it. Summer of Music or Summer of Love or something like that. That's the I think it's on Disney Plus. Is absolutely a fantastic documentary. It's basically the was the Woodstock of black entertainment at that time.
Oh,
But
okay.
it never
Yeah, I
got
haven't seen
on-
I haven't seen the documentary, but I've seen sort of footage of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it never got on TV or anything like that.
Okay.
Never spoken about and what have you.
That'll be
But you
interesting.
had all of these legendary people. I think it was in Harlem, and it
Nina
was pretty
Simone
much
and so on.
everybody was there, man. Everybody was there. And when you watch it, and all the footage, all the original footage and stuff that was lost and or that just never saw the light of day, no television network ever picked it up,
Ever
ever.
covered it. Yeah.
And he did a documentary on it, and that's what he won for. So all that got overshadowed. Samuel L. Jackson getting a lifetime, a whole bunch of stuff that was
Yep.
you can celebrate, and nobody talking about it.
No,
You know, and that's the annoying part of it.
it is, and it's funny because just as you can say a lot of the headlines were around abuse, around that story, and we've kind of gone in that direction with our conversation this evening as well.
Well, exactly, and yeah, I ain't really put too much into that conversation anymore. To be honest, with Will Smith is concerned, we'll see what happened there, stuff. But yeah, so this afternoon we thought it'd be interesting to talk about human trafficking. I saw an article a few weeks ago, just talking about it in the Caribbean, and it just hit me that actually I don't think I even understand or even know the extent of it in the region, because it's not something that you see in the news all the time. It's not something that you hear about quite a lot. Living here in the UK, we probably hear about it quite a lot. I don't want to say it's just them, but obviously with people coming over from France and trying to get away from war zones and stuff, you got the people traffickers that take advantage of people and what have you.
Yeah.
I see it's an issue on the border of Poland at the moment with Ukraine as well, because just people turning up in cars saying, "Hey, I'm here to help," and people disappearing.
Yeah.
And families, children, women, and stuff just disappearing. So we thought it'd be a good time to just have a chat with some people who are knowledgeable about that subject. Invite them into the living room and have a chat and see.
Yeah, it's a heavy subject, and it's one that it's almost sitting below the radar a little bit in some ways in the Caribbean because it's a global problem. But in reality, we don't really talk enough about it in the Caribbean and try to really dig beneath the veneer.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when we talk about it, we actually look at it as a global problem.
Yeah, we stay up there.
we actually look out at it, but don't recognize what's happening within the region as well. So so I think it's really a good idea that we get to talk about this and hear a bit more.
Yeah, I think so. So we got 3 people in. We got Gareth from Trinidad. We'll let everyone introduce themselves, of course. We got Dr. Olivia Smith from Barbados, and we got Kimberly Singh from Trinidad as well. And we're going to bring those guys in and have a conversation. We're going to define what human trafficking is. We're going to start from the ground floor and then elevate the conversation so that we understand what it is, how it affects us, why we should care about it, and if there's anything we can do to help spot or to help alleviate it within the region. So as usual, guys, give our guests a good old We Global living room welcome. We're gonna bring them in now.
Welcome. Good evening. Welcome.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Wow.
Everyone.
Gareth, you look as though you just come from a really important function, man.
I feel on the rest.
I have to represent, man. Look, it's Trinidad and Tobago, man. Come on,
Oh,
man.
Yes, yeah.
TNT, sweet, sweet TNT.
Well,
Yes.
welcome. Welcome to you. Welcome, Dr. Smith. How are you? Hear
Yeah.
us?
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't think she's hearing us at the moment.
Okay.
But
And Kimberly, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing
Yeah.
all right, man. We're
Yeah.
doing all right. Good to have you in the living room as well. So welcome and good to have you all. So look, can you hear us, Olivia?
I think she's stuck.
Okay. So
Oh, it's coming.
Oh,
It's
I
coming
think
now.
she can.
okay.
Are you hearing us, Olivia? We're not hearing you.
Oh no,
Okay,
we
so
can't hear.
Okay.
no connection there.
Need to
Okay,
figure
go
it
ahead.
out.
Well, look, Gareth, let's start with you first of all. Then, let's just give us a little bit of a bit of background with yourself, and we're going to get into defining what human trafficking is for our audience as we go through this evening.
All
But
right.
it would be good to hear from you and how you have been, involved in Trinidad and what you've been observing to start with. Just give us a brief introduction.
Well, I'm Garth Sinclair. I'm a motivational speaker, radio talk show host
Mm-hmm.
of a program called Iron Dependency, and it's a drug demand reduction prevention program.
Mm-hmm.
And of course it captures all the social ills in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide, and
Mm-hmm.
of course human trafficking is one of them. We are currently sponsored by the Counter-Trafficking Unit, Ministry of National Security. We're on airtime, and I indirectly am representing the institutions here today to have this discussion.
Wow. So that's why you come dress to represent.
Official.
Well, well, this is kind of natural, but
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Oh,
Ooh.
you know,
oh.
but seeing that I have, I'm standing on the shoulders of these two great institutions in our country, I have to
Wow.
look the part as well.
Fantastic,
Got
man.
it.
Good,
I
good,
like
good.
it. I love it. It's great.
I'm with it.
And Kimberly, how are you?
I am fine. I'm great.
Give us
I'm
a little
happy
bit of
to
a little bit of a background about yourself and also your involvement around human trafficking in Trinidad.
be human trafficking. Well, my name is Kimberly Singh. I'm a mother. I'm a believer in Christ, and I'm someone who's actually very passionate about this topic. Basically, um, my background really is it's around 2016, 2017. A lot of women started to go missing in Trinidad. It
All
was
right.
it was unbearable for me reading the news. It was very stressful. I mean, I'm a woman. We have mothers, we have sisters and stuff. And I actually came across A21, which is the brand that I am basically, I guess you could say, volunteering for. It's
Christine King.
A21, Abolishing 20th Century Slavery, which is my t-shirt I have on. Um, and I became the national host and coordinator for Trinidad and Tobago, hosting the walks, creating awareness, and that kind of thing. And when I got involved in this, is when I started to do more research to get numbers. I met Garth. I became part of a little training the counter-trafficking unit had, and I actually started to get really more involved in the depth situation of this and what was happening in our country. And through my work, that's how I became aware and how I started to learn and I started to grow in terms of wanting to be a part and making awareness just to well, just anyone on the street basically. And that's how I
So
became a part.
okay. So A21 has regional representation as well, or is it
Globally,
only
Global.
global.
right? I know it's
There,
global, but
yes,
do we have like a regional rep or just national reps
yes,
for A21?
anyone. So basically, they have usually over 400 walks that happen every year in October. Of course, due to COVID, there have been a lot of changes, and I wasn't able to host. But
Yeah.
if you would like to represent and you would like to host a walk in your country or your region, you reach out to A21. You go to their page, and you can be a national host and coordinator like myself.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Got it.
All right. Let's
Olivia,
round up and see if we've got Is Olivia with us there?
can you hear us? You can hear us, but we can't hear you for
Can't hear
some
you.
reason.
Oh man.
Oh dear, we got to try this because I really want to get you in on this conversation. So
Yeah.
I think what you might be able to do if you can log out and then come back in and see if we can get that working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
No worries at all.
Cool. So look, Gareth, let's come back to you then in terms of the experience, because one of the things that we need people to understand when we hear the term human trafficking, it's a catch-all, and there's a lot that is wrapped up in that. How would you define it?
Well, you guys hear me clear, right?
Yeah, we good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, right. So human trafficking, as it defines, is the trade of humans for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, commercial exploitation, and for the trafficker and others. And it can be as simple as someone in your home plan to traffic you, or someone being or a group of people being coerced to transport drugs from across borders. Is defined as human. You can be defined as human trafficking.
Right.
So it's either for forced labor, sexual slavery, or could be for both.
Interesting. So I think people, when we think about it, sexual slavery and stuff, I think people probably think, yeah, that's all it is. But forced labor and the Caribbean, to what extent is that an issue?
Well, it is it's a very serious issue,
Yeah.
because people people can actually be coerced in coming here for a better life, and then end up in someone's house or warehouse and working for little or next to nothing, and they are threatened with exposure to the law. Their passports are seized, and they are forced to do really manual labor or any type of labor as defined by the person who brought them here, and they are paid next to nothing for it, and sometimes they have to work to repay the person who brought them here. So if the person could trump up and say, okay, you have to pay me back 5,000 US before you could start getting paid, and that could be all part of it. So these are people who can actually afford to hire proper labor, but they still will look for the cheapest way out, which is
Right.
to have forced labor. So
Forced labor.
most of the time it would be a foreign national who doesn't have any family here. They don't know east, west, north from south,
Yeah.
and they are just basically trapped in
Right.
in, in that situation.
Yeah, yeah. Olivia, you're back? I think she's still stuck.
Okay. And how much? I mean, when I pushed out our show today, Kimberly, somebody came back to me and said, "Human trafficking in the Caribbean. That's actually a thing that happens in the Caribbean." So there is a certain level of ignorance in our society, because again, like we said earlier, people talk about it in that global space without recognizing actually it's here. How would you describe what you see in the Caribbean and what it looks like in the Caribbean?
Well, like you said, some people are ignorant to the fact that things happen in the nation, and even if it happens globally, it cannot affect you as a person, it can affect your family. And in terms of in the Caribbean, I think that, my experience and being open to it was when I realized what was happening in Trinidad. So I said, of course, it's happening up the chains, down the chains, anywhere there's woman, anywhere there's what should I say, a need or demand, and it's about money, right? So
Yep.
it can't be that it's just happening in America or Europe. It's anywhere that someone is going to want to pay for this, or if you, as I said, a demand. So it's happening in every single country, every single state, every single island. I don't believe I need to see it happening to know that it's actually happening. It's an industry. It's larger than drugs, and children are trafficked, and God could also correct me if I'm wrong. They're trafficked as young children as well, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds. So it's not even tough to say, well, when you're a teenager or at a certain age, you can be trafficked as a young. Even babies are sold on the black market. So there isn't even an age limit. So those who say like you said, the person send a message saying, "Is it happening in the Caribbean?" means that they are unaware, one, or they're in denial.
Hmm.
Why is it that in 21st century people are still asking such a question? Is it that not enough awareness is going out there? Is it that people just turn a blind eye to it? And if that's the case, then that's a big problem. Because, like what we were talking about earlier, Mark, all of us have a part to play in it. And when I say that, we have to be responsible to be able to create that awareness to our peers, our families, strangers, so everyone knows what to look out for. So I honestly believe that this day and age, I don't think anyone should not know that human trafficking exists in the Caribbean at all. I don't know. I could be wrong for
But
that.
well, I think I agree with you, but I also could see how why that could be the case, because I think there's certain subjects that when we talk about in the region, we talk about it as something that's happening
over
out
there.
there, and
Right.
then a lot
As
of the
an
news,
internally.
yeah, and then a lot of the news that we consume now, most people are watching your CNNs and your NBCs and your
Right.
BBCs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when
International.
the subject comes up, usually it's talking about out there, and we go
Yeah.
like, "What? Were these places terrible enough?" You know,
And it right here.
we
Right.
exactly. I can tell you, me, I watched the movie Taken, and I refused to go anywhere in Eastern Europe. That was just as me, right? But we actually think that it's
I
out
think
there. It's not
not
us.
home, not
It's
home,
not
not
home,
home, very close.
because our
Yeah.
news
I
agencies aren't
understand.
talking about it as home.
Yeah.
It usually comes on the international part of the news,
Yeah.
Right.
if it
Okay.
does,
Yes, I
or you're
understand. I could
watching thing.
understand that.
I
Yeah.
guess
So
the other thing too there, Andre, is looking at our history. If we think of the history of the Caribbean and why we're here, we would say certainly we wouldn't allow that to happen again, or that sort of
Yeah.
scale of or
true.
anything that looks like our tragic history.
Yeah.
We would not allow that to happen in our region, and certainly we would be people who would stand up against it, given our knowledge of what transpired with enslaved African people who were brought across the Atlantic.
And
True.
guys, it's a very lucrative. It turns out that some
Billions of
people
dollars, man.
found out. Yes, it's very,
Yeah.
very, very lucrative
The
because you
whole
see,
industry.
you see, if for instance, if you're into guns and you sell someone a gun, that gun is
Hmm.
gone, right?
One
But
thing.
you could continue to sell someone over and over and over, and it's not something that can happen that you see the fallout, like, okay, someone like the crack cocaine phenomenon, and you see
Hmm.
people start dropping on the streets one by one. And when I say dropping, people start showing up on the streets dragging slippers, heading on a drug block when they otherwise. It's not something like that. It's something that actually is hidden in plain sight,
Correct.
so it's not something that you can actually point out, but you have
Yeah.
to pay close attention to.
But
And this is why
Olivia, can
our
you hear
unit was
us?
formed.
Because I really want to get you in
Yeah.
this
We love
conversation,
to get
because
her voice in.
I know you got so much information to impart. So
Yes, Olivia. Come
I
on,
know you
turn
can
your mic.
hear us, but for whatever reason we can't hear you. Perhaps disconnect your headset if it's a Bluetooth headset, and see if you can just come through your speakers naturally. Because I know you have a lot of facts and figures about this stuff in the Caribbean, and I would really love to get your voice in it. Nope, not hearing you yet. You're on mute at the moment.
She's muted there, yeah.
Come on, Olivia.
You
Praying
muted
for you.
yourself.
Can you hear me yet?
Ah,
Now we
there we
cooking with
go. We
gas.
got you.
Yeah.
Good, finally. So I think I'll have to get rid of the headset then.
There you go.
Okay.
Let's get
Okay,
rid of that.
that's all right.
Hello, everyone.
Ex- Hello,
Hello,
Olivia.
Hi.
Olivia.
So you heard us speaking just now and talking about what is human trafficking, its prevalence in the region. People don't know, and people not really necessarily believing it's happening in the region or understand that it is. Can you shed some light on what's really going on in the region?
Well, thank you, everyone, for having me this afternoon. It's my pleasure. What's happening in the region has been happening all the time, but I think because we're on social media more now, it's becoming more visible to us.
Hmm.
The Caribbean countries, there's human trafficking in every country, including Caribbean countries. Some countries have more of it than others. Caribbean countries are known as sending states. We send people to England and to the States and Canada, and they end up in miserable situations. But we are also receiving states. Through the Caribbean, the majority of persons who end up in traffic situations tend to be Venezuelan, Trinidadian to a lesser extent, Guyanese, and
Mm-hmm.
Jamaicans, and they're normally women for sexual exploitation. But we do have men being trafficked. We have boys being trafficked, and they're normally trafficked for
Oh wow,
labor. We
that's
tend to
interesting.
sensationalize the sex trafficking and forget that people are trafficked for labor or agricultural farms, and
Mm-hmm.
also trafficked to domestic workers, which I heard Gar speaking to earlier. People are trafficked again for several reasons. It is profitable, and he's right. We make money off of one person time and time again. Why it is that we don't accept or we don't see a lot of officials and a lot of people ourselves in the community don't know what trafficking looks like.
Yeah.
And you
Well, explain.
cannot. Right. Human trafficking means that you're moving people either internally from the country to the towns or across borders for the purpose of exploiting them for profit. The person does not consent because you coerce them, you can
Mm-hmm.
kidnap them, you can threaten them. When we talk to the Jamaican girls, you will hear a lot of them went online looking for a job. But then this person said to me that they will pay for my passport and my ticket and so they accept that arrangement. But if they don't pay back that money, they will kill my family. They will
Wow.
beat
Yeah.
me. So there's always the element of fear happening. And I want to
Yeah.
at this time tell you the difference also between smuggling and trafficking, because a
Oh,
lot of
please do.
people get it confused.
Okay.
Trafficking happens.
Go
Yep, go
ahead.
ahead.
Trafficking happens across borders and internally, while smuggling happens only across borders. And the country, you're committing a crime against a country when you move a person, you smuggle the person, but you're committing the crime against a person if they're trafficked. Now, often people pay for you to take them, say, from Venezuela across to Trinidad in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Okay.
But what happens now when we get to Trinidad, you decide you're not going to honor your commitment. You take my money, but now you turn around and you force me into a situation where you have my passport, you're not releasing it, and you're telling me I have to go to work for people I didn't agree to work with. So I now
Okay.
become a victim. But a lot of times, law enforcement have a problem here because first you agree to be smuggled, so you knew what you were getting into, but now you find yourself a
Yeah.
victim.
In a
And there are
trafficking
different types
situation.
of laws that govern a person who broke a law and person who is a victim. So you have all of these elements happening. Over to you.
Wow. Wow. There's so much in that we can unpack, and we will
Okay.
over the course of this conversation. And I would like to come back about prevalence because as we were saying earlier, look, this is a issue that we can often get stuck up in the global conversation. I want to understand what this actually looks like specifically
On the ground.
in the Caribbean.
And Kimberly, you want to start with yourself in Trinidad? We come back to you, Dr. Smith.
Well, I mean, in terms of Trinidad, I don't know, maybe God might be able to give you a better explanation in terms of Trinidad. Why I say that is because in terms of my experience, I it's based on what I've learned through the Counter-Trafficking unit, which Garth is also part of. And I know I have never actually physically dealt with anyone who has been trafficked and that sort of stuff. So my work is really more of creating that awareness and learning from the Counter-Trafficking unit. So I
Got it.
think Garth may be able to better
All right.
Okay.
Garth?
take that
All
Prevalence,
right.
yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Well, we too were in denial here for a while, even though
Okay.
we had a counter-traffic unit set up by the Ministry of National Security, and this was established in 2013
Wow.
under the Trafficking in Persons Act, or
Mm-hmm.
the TIPS
Ti-
Act,
mhm.
Chapter 1210. I think that's the proper, yes. And the function of this counter-trafficking unit, they were to um, to be proactive in investigating matters pertaining to trafficking, to human trafficking, and to conduct and coordinate as well the screening and interviewing of persons in order to identify the possible victims of trafficking. Now, just last month, the counter trafficking unit here rescued 26 foreign
Wow.
nationals who were trafficked here.
Wow.
So who were smuggled here for trafficking. So
Mm-hmm.
that's to tell you how prevalent, and that's just I'm just
From where? From
from
where?
Venezuela.
Okay.
And
Okay.
remember, during the pandemic, we had a lot of that happening
Yes.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
People being smuggled to Trinidad for the purpose of trafficking. Now, even if it doesn't happen from there, remember there's an at-risk group that's involved here. So it can be runaways, um, basically, people with a history of molestation or abuse,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
those in foster care,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
even the mentally ill, the disabled, they too can be victims. Females who are pregnant and or who already have children, undocumented migrants, and this is from studies done and research done by the counter trafficking unit.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's very very prevalent, and it
Wow.
would not have
Incredible.
been it would not have been the ministry here would not have set up this unit if it wasn't serious. As a matter
Mm-hmm.
of fact, just last week, I was fortunate, if I should use that word, to be included on a working group to implement a national plan of action against trafficking in persons.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this the letters of appointment given to us, and this is until 2025 we have to make sure that this working group come together
Yeah.
and come up with a plan of action
Wow.
to combat this scourge. And
Wow.
remember, we are on a watch list as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to come
So
to that. Yeah.
right, so we have to we have to be very 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 meticulous going forward with this, but it's very serious.
But
Can,
Well,
even still, as I
oh, go ahead, Phil.
listen to this, I'm trying to think from an economic perspective. How I, how is it profiting those who do traffic? Because if you're certainly if you are creating the demand, you are still paying something. So is there such a significant difference between what you would pay someone to, let's say, labor to do manual labor for you versus what you're paying into these networks, and also the cost of sustaining that network, the high risk
mm-hmm.
of it as well? What makes it economically viable?
Olivia,
Well, I
answer me,
s-
Olivia. Sorry.
Okay.
no. Go ahead, Dr. Smith.
Olivia's fine. Olivia's
Oh,
fine.
Olivia.
Oh, good.
Um,
Thank you. I just wasn't sure.
yeah, it comes down to the point that you can make money from a person over and over again. What I will share with
Mm-hmm.
you are some of the financial indicators of the crime, because the whole idea here is to tell people what they're looking for. You
Yeah.
have persons who have a lifestyle that's inconsistent with their stated income, but you see them around a lot of women. Have women in their presence all the time, and these women appear to be working for them. They tend to escort their victims to the banks. They open bank accounts in the women or men's names,
Mm-hmm.
and they open it. But the victims receive no deposit. They have all kinds of strange deductions on their pay stubs. If they do get a pay stub,
Mm,
they have to pay recruitment fees. That employer or trafficker is listed on the victim's bank account.
mhm,
Um, they were paid in cash,
Okay.
or
mm,
sometimes they have low or no paychecks.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of structured deposits to avoid detection, and this moves into money laundering.
yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and you have the victims having money on their accounts but transfer the money back to the traffickers.
Mhm,
What we have found in Barbados is that Western Union is being used to launder the
mm,
money
Uh-huh.
for trafficked persons. So for the traffickers, sure. So what happens is that, and around the world, Western Union and such entities are known for this, is that you have 9 or 10 girls going to the Western Union with X money to send out of Barbados to
I
Jamaica,
see.
especially, and it's going to one person. And this is done on a daily basis.
Well,
Right. So
So you're doing the math there.
yeah, I'm starting to see where you're coming from. So it could be the case that someone who has employed someone to do manual labor actually doesn't know that this person is being trafficked and is actually paying into a system
The cheat.
thinking that this is legitimate labor, but that person is being trafficked.
Yes. And now we have an interesting phenomenon happening is that people are now using, I guess you've heard of Backpage and other social media
Yeah,
platforms where
verts.
you
Yeah.
buy and sell the virtual platforms, you buy and sell women and children on there. And you have these virtual currency exchanges. So what cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is now being used to buy
yeah,
um,
yeah.
Yeah.
a
You're
woman,
not seeing that money. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
they're giving them prepaid credit cards. So the thing is for government to not be in a position to monitor or regulate them, and this is where law enforcement has to come up to in the Caribbean has to come up to speed in terms of learning about the use of technology because the traffickers have gone ahead. They're using the technology to recruit people and using them to buy and sell them
Yeah.
over to
Before
And
you, okay. Now, I
go ahead,
was going
Mark.
to say, Olivia, before you get too far down into law enforcement, because we've heard quite a bit about prevalence in Trinidad. Can you give us an indication around what prevalence in Barbados actually looks like?
I've worked with a number of suspected victims. When I say that, is because unless that person, unless there's prosecution of a trafficker, and so the person is only a suspected victim in law.
Yeah. I was about to
So
say. Yeah.
um, it is very hard to have data, to have numbers. I'll tell you
Ah,
that.
Hmm.
One, the lack of cooperation from the victims, the lack of the victims knowing that they're actually being trafficked. Because I found in Barbados that most of the women that were brought to me or I was taken to, because I'm working in the migrant community, and they came with stories and they will take me to the girls and I will give them food and other services, befriend them, and I talk to them and I find out from them they don't even know they're trafficked. Yes, I was approached in Jamaica. Yes, I was approached in Guyana, and I was told if I came to Barbados, this is what will happen, but this is what is happening now. And then there's the Stockholm Syndrome. A lot of these girls get attached to the traffickers because that's where their money's coming from. And so when law
Yeah.
enforcement, or even myself, go to talk to these girls, they're not going to talk to you because they're going to
Yeah.
say, well, if I cooperate with the police, how am I going to get money to
I
feed my
lose most
family
of
Exactly.
like
at home?
yeah.
So the economics take over. Um, and that gives us a problem with them being properly able to list a number how many traffic victims there really are.
yeah.
Because if
Hmm.
you are
Hmm.
complicit or and there are other indicators that you are trafficked, but you're saying I'm not cooperating, I don't believe I'm trafficked. I'll
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
this.
Okay.
Is our attitudes towards our fellow Caribbean people contributing to our lack of understanding or lack of ability to see or spot when someone is being trafficked? And I list that thinking of what Garth was saying in relation to Trinidad and the Venezuelans coming over. And I wonder what the attitude of Trinidadians are towards the Venezuelans. So they might just think that they're trying to come in the country and carry away jobs. So they're not even looking at the underlying things that might be happening. And even when I think of Barbados, I remember in the 90s or early noughties, the Guyanese coming into
Chinese, yeah.
Barbados and our attitudes towards Guyanese
Yeah.
people. And therefore, we probably did stuff that perpetuated their situation and not allow them to want to speak or seek help, because in our minds we saw them as just people coming to carry away jobs with cheap labor, and in the case of Barbados, the women would say carry a Bajan men, and that kind of stuff, and just the attitude that we have towards our own people does not allow us to even see this issue.
Yeah.
You want to respond to that, Ken?
So no problem. I definitely agree with that because even today, you hear the smart remarks and the comments that people make towards the Venezuelans. And my whole thing with that is they are people as well. If you cut them and you cut a Trinidadian, we bleed the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We need to eat every day. We have children. We need to make money. And yes, there are those that come across there and make solicit and those things. But majority, I mean, I always tell people, put yourself in their shoes. You have to flee your country. Think about fleeing Trinidad, going to another country. There's the language barrier. You have no
Right.
idea where or what to say. You've had to leave your family. Have to leave your children. And this is way before COVID. So this was going on long before COVID. It just amplified. If we think about what these people are going through mentally, emotionally, and or some of them are even abused and trafficked in Venezuela and then come across there and even further abuse and traffic. And I agree, our attitude is terrible. I still hear how people talk down and talk about them, and they're all not the same, but they all want one thing: they're trying to survive. Yeah, and
Yeah.
some of them are put in situations where they think this is the only way, and some of them, this is the only thing that they know because they may have been trafficked from since a young girl, or that's all they've been taught. If you've been taught one thing, you're not going to automatically change. You're not going to automatically say, all right, I'm going to get a job. This is all you know. And I'm going to just give you a small example of how serious this thing is. And this is a personal experience. 2 years ago, I started an online business due to COVID and not being able to go to the job I had before. And it entails me being able to do delivery and stuff. And that day, I had two persons come with me to do the delivery. And have you ever felt every single hair on your body stand up? I had that like 100 times. I went into a certain part of Trinidad to do delivery, and it looked as though it was grey. The place looked like it was had shutters. It was very weird because it's an upstanding part of Trinidad, and this place just looked like it didn't belong. If you understand what I'm saying, it
Yeah, yeah.
didn't belong
Right.
there at
Yeah.
all. And when I got out the car, I just saw a Indian male come towards me, and he was like, "Sit down in the car, sit down in the car. I don't want people to see that we're doing transactions." And I'm thinking, I am just gonna deliver an electronic to you. Something not is not right there. It is not right. And then of course, when I was conversing over the phone, it was a Spanish person. So I sat back in the car.
Yeah.
I did my transaction, and listen, I couldn't wait to get out of there. Like, listen, I couldn't wait to get out of there. I was trying to make sense of what was going on, but I
Yeah.
knew in my mind something was going on there
Yeah.
that not supposed to be going on. None of the women or who I was speaking to, who I was originally doing the transaction with, came outside and dealt with me. And then a Trinidadian lady called me after. So not only is it our attitude, but we have persons that are here that are, how should I say it, are working with these traffickers. It's so sad to say that there are women and not only men a part of this. They are, I don't know if you want to say the middleman or the ones that make co-host
Complicit.
with you, but yes, any person that is
Facilitating it.
willing. Yes, facilitate. And I think if we change our attitude, I think if we look at them differently and we look at them as
More
humans,
empathy. We'll see more.
more empathy, compassion, and just to love people. God called us to love people. Love
Yeah.
Him to love people. And, just think your mother, your sister, your daughters in that situation,
Yeah.
and you just change your eye. And then some people are just blind towards it. They say, well, you know what, that have nothing to do with me. Venezuelans, they have nothing to do with me. I really care about them. But guess
Yeah.
what? We can't go with that mindset because guess what? It's going to come a day where someone who's a Trinidadian that may be in a situation like that,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to act quickly. So why we don't see everyone as a human, need help, let's love one another, and let's try to rectify the situation because it's not only Venezuelans being trafficked, Trinidadians are being trafficked as well. I also think that they have this saying that all the Venezuelan women want to come to the Trinidad men, right? And what they do. And listen, I hear people talk about it all the time, and I try not to comment because they could get really upset and emotional about it. Yes, there are some that make come for the men, but if you look at most of them, they are coming here to build a life or actually
Coming
make
from a
money.
situation,
So,
for
yes,
the thing,
coming
yeah.
from a situation and then they coming into a dire one here. A couple months ago, over 2,000 Venezuelans went back to Venezuela because they could not take what was going on here.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
I think that says a lot. It says a lot because you ran from a situation and you're running back into the situation head on
Yeah.
because of what you're facing here.
Wow.
And I think that says a lot about us as
Wow.
Trinidadians.
Yeah.
Is
Gareth,
it
you
not
wanted to come in on that?
Hmm. There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
Um,
Unpack.
you
for
know,
real?
but I listened to Olivia, and I wanted to find out before, if you all don't mind, I just find out from you if
Conversations, man. Go ahead.
yeah, if okay, now as I said, we have a counter trafficking unit set up here, and we also get corporations from our victims, like the documentary I sent you all, Maria. Um, she does
Breaking,
it.
man.
Yeah, it was. But Sarah too, who I told you all about, and what we're planning to do with that. But the corner, because of the victim centered approach, that because remember before, they were treated as criminals as well when
Yeah.
they were caught in these nightclubs and stuff like that. But since the unit was established, and I can tell you, the head of the unit is very, very, very connected and passionate about the
Yeah,
work that this unit does.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, Trinidad and Tobago could tell you that about her. She's
I
Miss
can
Alana
agree.
Wheeler. Yes, so the director of the corner trafficking unit. But I think Trinidad and Tobago, I must say, has gone a step further. That now, when let's say a raid is conducted, they tend to they do an intense investigation, and then they do interviews with the victims, because they separate the perpetrators from the victims,
Yeah.
and they will of course go into what they would need at first, like food, clothing, even healthcare.
Yeah.
Because remember, some people who are trafficked, they are subjected they are fed substances to keep them
Subdued.
Yeah.
subdued. That's right. And some
Okay.
of them,
Yeah.
even depend on it. Now
Yeah.
imagine, and I could understand that, because you can imagine, if you are a young lady, you have to sleep okay, they tell you you have to work for at least 2,000 US to pay me back. And how you do that? You make, let's say, 500 TT a night. So imagine you have to subject yourself as a young lady to sleep with about 10, 15 men in one night.
Wow.
How can you do that if you don't numb yourself?
Yeah.
So some of them even depend on alcohol and other hard drugs
Wow.
to survive that
Just get
journey,
them through
Wow.
the
right?
trauma.
So right, and even when they are rescued, now the counter trafficking unit and our health institutions now have to get involved, because some of them get dependent on the substance so much that they could even run back to the trafficker, knowing that, hey, this is bad, but at least I could get the drug of my choice. You know.
But
So
but it,
so sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Carry on.
Yeah, no, well, I was just saying too that the 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 unit also, they work in tandem with the children authority. So if there are children involved, they are handed over to the children authority as well. Then we have hotlines set up. So they have victim care services as well. They have the child line involved. Then they have the domestic violence unit. Then the victim and witness support unit. So if that doesn't say how serious we are taking
Yeah.
this in Trinidad and Tobago, yeah, I don't know what it is. We are taking it very, very serious, and a lot of time and resources are being put into this situation here.
But the unit has humanized the response, which is
Correct.
really, really important. And
Yes.
Olivia, I was going to ask you, given what's happening in Trinidad, do we know of whether similar approaches are happening elsewhere in the region?
Yes. Guyana, who's on tier one of the trafficking tiers for the U.S. Department of
You
State
might want to explain
International
what those
Trafficking
tiers are and what they mean.
Report. Okay.
Is one
What we
high or
have, one is the highest tier that
okay?
you can have. What's happened in the U.S. Department of State usually every year provide a ranking. So these ranks go from 1 to 3. Tier 1 says that the governments are fully complying with the minimum standards to eliminate trafficking in the country, where Tier 2 watch lists, where Barbados and Trinidad are right now, the countries fail to show that they have provided enough effort for the year to prevent trafficking based on the efforts made or not made the year in front. And then those tier 3 are the ones who simply don't comply. So you have different countries in the region making efforts, victim-centered approach efforts. Certainly, Guyana has done some significant work in working with the NGOs, and they're part of the National Task Force. And a similar thing is being done in Jamaica. We want to get Caribbean countries to recognize that you're dealing with a victim. Law
Yeah.
enforcement handle these victims very roughly.
Tremendously.
Just like the person on the street, you hear a lot of them. And I was an immigration officer, and I can tell you firsthand, a lot of them, these girls came here and knew what they were going to get into. And that's their problem. Why should we be chasing, trying to help them? Then some people will say they need deporting. And officials, women, other women throughout the public service are like, they come here to carry away the Bajan men, or here in Guyana, they come to carry away the Venezuelan women, come to carry away our men. So we will do everything not to help them because they should go home. So you have that happening. But as we were speaking, I wanted to give an idea of who's involved in this
Oh, please
traffic.
do. Please do.
We have people who invest in it. You have large corporations in the hotel sectors in the Caribbean. You have the hotels. You will find these girls in the hotels at night for the high end customers. You have those who recruit them. We have those who transport them. We have the corrupt public officials. And we have too many corrupt public officials involved.
Wow.
We have those who are the informers, those who collect the money, and of course the client. This is a demand and supply situation happening. However,
Yeah.
coming back to public officials, we get resistance in in countries acknowledging there's a trafficking problem because of the number of officials or the levels of officials that are involved in
Participating.
the process. In every
Oh, wow.
country in the Caribbean, you will hear the girls or the workers, the traffic workers say there was a policeman or immigration officer that was involved.
Part of the
And I
process.
think we need to put systems in place within law enforcement agencies, immigration agencies, to be holding officers to a code of
Account.
ethics.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because one of the things from being an officer myself, I found is that sexual exploitation is a normal thing. So it's not a big deal because that's the culture we are raised in. We are raised in a culture where everybody knows, as I said before, that somebody's stepfather is abusing them, their uncle. We have a situation evolving because a lot of it because of economics. The mothers know that other men or that her man or other men are sleeping with a 13-year-old daughter. But what the electricity and the electricity and the water bills have to be paid for the month. And so the acceptance of sexual exploitation now not only moves from the home, but it moves into law enforcement
Yeah.
and other officials
Right.
having this attitude that it's just sex. What's the big deal?
Wow.
Hmm.
This is an incredible conversation, man.
Yeah, it seems like there's four parts of that make this such a complicated or complex, let's say, more than complicated thing to deal with. One is dealing with the demand, the other is dealing with the supply. Then there's the system itself, and then there's the sort of socio-cultural context around it. So where do you begin
Yeah,
to address
can
it?
I can I can I
Yeah, yeah. Jump in,
can I
Gareth.
jump in?
Go ahead.
Um, Olivia, I heard you mention about Ghana being on tier one. We are and yes, you smile. We are on the watch list, tier two position. But where is Barbados in all of this? And do you all have a unit as well set up across there?
Mm.
Okay, Barbados is on tier two watch list, but the Attorney General and other officials would have about 2 weeks ago reported that Barbados is taking steps to move forward with the national action plan that it has. We like to see that it is shared publicly so we know what it is. There will be doing public awareness campaign, and they're making amendments to strengthen the legislation. There is a trafficking unit within the police, and I commend the government on the steps that they've taken thus far. But we still have a way to go, and one of it is to let our law enforcement officers be properly trained or sufficiently trained in not only how to identify the crime, but how to manage the investigations.
Yeah.
Because we will see that yearly we are seeing all of these trafficking cases identified, but then you're not getting anybody
Cases,
convicted.
no convictions.
Barbados had one case before the law court since 2013,
Wow.
since
Wow.
2013. And a lot of it is how the investigations are handled. And from my research here, where I am now, find a lot of it is that law enforcement use the same frame or the same lens to treat the crime of trafficking as they treat the other crimes. So how they go about handling the investigations of those crimes, they bring it and they handle trafficking. For example, if you keep a witness too long, they're going to disappear on you. The traffic
Yeah.
person might go back home, so you will never get a case. Or
Yeah.
the traffickers will get to them, and you will never get a case.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the
Mm-hmm.
legislation is a problem. I'm advocating throughout the Caribbean to let's fix it. We have legislation that depends on the victim to
Victim.
testify. And without
Yeah.
the victim testifying, we have no case. But we
No
have so
case.
many cases that we can't move forward with because of that. Now we are in an era where we have technology. We can look at forensic evidence. We can
Mm-hmm.
take witness testimony. We can do so many other things to keep the cases
Yeah,
going
yeah.
because more and more you are finding, according to the data, that victims are increasingly refusing to cooperate
Yeah.
with law enforcement. A lot of it because they have too many officers that are complicit and they can identify these officers and they don't want to handle. I've had a
Yeah.
Corruption, man.
situation.
That's
Corruption.
right. That's
Yes,
right.
I've had a
Right.
situation in Barbados where I had a traffic victim from Trinidad that I was working with. And she said to me, there was a fracas where she ended up going to jail. But when she was taken to the police station, the law enforcement officers that were in the nightclub were already in the police station. And when they
Mm.
brought her into, and they wrote a statement for her, she didn't give a statement. The
Oh God.
owner of the club
Wow.
came and pulled a chair and sat down next to the police officer while she was giving a statement.
Hmm.
So
Creating fear.
obviously, we're never going to get to court with that one.
No,
No.
no.
Never going to see you light of day.
And that's the
Okay?
problem right there, guys. The Olivia
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head because and because we are in the same position, we
Mm-hmm.
found ourselves, and we were actually on tier two, and then we put back on the watch list for the very same reason. And then, speaking with someone who is directly involved in the judiciary, they were saying that some of the cases that lacking proper evidence, whether it's you know whether it's by accident or by design or on purpose, you put two and two together here, and if you take, let's say, we have people in our prison getting fat since
Mm-hmm.
since this unit was established,
Yeah.
and for some reason, we don't know what the reason is, but when you keep someone in abeyance for, let's say, 5 6 years, a victim who eventually has to come to court and give evidence, whatever they said preliminarily, they can't come now and even forget a
Exactly.
line in what they said, because now you have smart lawyers waiting to jump on that.
There's a
Oh,
discrepancy.
And
Yes.
exactly. So a victim now, after a while, especially if the witness protection program, they actually get fed up. Is they drag it out, as I said, either on purpose or because of ineptness. But for some reason, we cannot
Yeah.
get a conviction, and 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 the judiciary is right there. And there was even a suggestion. Well, then open a special court for human trafficking cases only.
Yeah.
Why not
right.
do that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
remember when as I heard Oliver a while ago too about officers, we interviewed a young lady who was coerced to take drugs out of the country, and she traveled all the way. She when she was on her way to the airport, she asked the guy, "So where's the drug? I'm not seeing it." What they tell her, "Don't worry, you just go check in, and that final bay that you're sitting before you board the aircraft, somebody will come to you." She did
Mm-hmm.
that, and an airport security officer, female in uniform, came to her, took her to the bathroom, and gave her a belt to put on with cocaine in it. All right,
Gosh.
in uniform. I have that. We
Um,
have that on tape. I'm not making this up.
Wow.
Because this is one of the people we interviewed in a
um,
prison out in the UK. So, and she got her drugs from an airport security, the official security of the airport, not a hired contract security, the official one. So you're talking
Yeah.
about a different level now here of trafficking.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
corruption from top to bottom,
Exactly.
Oh,
I
all the
wanted
way
to
through.
I wanted to touch on something there as well, Olivia. What's the consequences of the tears? One, like why should we care whether US have a son? Why is it US versus like the United Nations or some other body? And two, and I guess Kimberly after Olivia or Gareth take this one is like, how can we get to a point? There's so much within our societies across the region that we only seem to deal with or to put things in place if there's a stick coming from outside the region
Yeah.
in some, how do we as a society get to a point where we can say to ourselves, no, this is an issue and we
it's not
should
good
deal
enough.
with
We
it.
need to deal with it.
It's not
Yeah.
good enough, as opposed to, oh, we on a list in Europe, so therefore we
We
need
got
to
to
do
do
something.
something.
Oh, we on a list in America,
it's urgency.
yeah. But Olivia, perhaps you can tell us, why should we care about the tiers? What's the consequences if we don't move up to tier one?
Okay. Well, first, let me double back. There are a lot of international laws and conventions that are there to combat trafficking, and the
Mm-hmm.
Palermo Protocol to prevent, suppress, punish trafficking of persons, especially women and children, was signed on to by many countries, but the legislation didn't have much teeth. And so the US government felt that they needed to strengthen the efforts to combat crime. And so they put the tier system in place. You annually see the report. You can read it freely online for every country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do not fully comply, the consequence that you may lose access to the World Bank financing and other international
Right.
agencies
Well.
financing. Also, when you have good standing, you look good internationally. Guyana is very proud of its tier one status, and it's working very hard every year to make sure it maintains that, because large investors will
Yeah,
see
they
this
have
as
reason
a
to know as well.
plus. So it has a lot to do with how the country looks. And so therefore the countries will make that effort to look good internationally. And the US government uses that
And may that affect things like
to encourage
visas and
them.
that sort of stuff as well?
No, it wouldn't go that far. It would be that they will deal with the country,
Okay.
hit them financially, basically,
So
where
higher
it
level
hurts,
than that. Yeah.
so that there's an incentive for them to want to do something. One of the complexities I may add is sometimes a lot of the crimes that are committed against victims do not fall squarely within what the trafficking legislation calls for, because there are a number of attendant crimes. And so this is where law enforcement has to think outside of the box. If I cannot get you just on trafficking charges, can I get you for domestic violence? Can I get you for money
Okay.
laundering? I will still be getting you. But there's a great reluctance of our people to think outside the box. And this is why, again, we are not getting hold of the traffickers when we do actually know that there are cases. But saying that, I also have to say to you, the crime is so complex because it is either subsumed in a lot of other offenses, or a lot of offenses are subsumed in there. And what do I mean? You have forgery of passport documents and so happening, a crime by itself.
Mm-hmm.
You have corruption happening. You have debt bondage happening. You have labor
Tax evasion,
exploitation
all that kind of
happening.
stuff.
You have unlawful confinement. You
A
have
lot to unpick there, boy. Wow.
you have murder, you have bodily injury, you have sexual assault, you have rape, you have torture, cruel and
You can
inhumane
get them on
treatment.
anything you want.
Yes, because trafficking is all of that.
Yes.
I
But
see.
there are also pieces of legislation for each of these. So I'm saying, if we're
Okay.
going to be serious in our efforts, let's think outside the box. Over to you.
There's a question that came to mind as well when you were talking about witness protection. I think it was Garth who mentioned it. You also mentioned it, Olivia. Witness protection. Do we have certain challenges with witness protection that are sort of inherent, given the size of our nations, our limited limitations in real estate, the fact that our let's say our if a police force is corrupt, it covers an entire nation as its jurisdiction. Do those create very specific challenges for witness protection that make that almost next to impossible to set
Impossible.
up?
Don't know. Garth, or can you speak to that? The witness
The
protection and stuff in the region. Have you seen where that's being flawed?
um, witness protection is always a tough one, both for the witness and the protection program, because as I said, you have a unit now. You are asking a unit to hold people indefinitely.
Yeah,
That's the
that's true.
first thing.
Because the amount of time it take with these cases, you're saying
Right.
telling
They're
someone
just
give
there.
it. Yeah, even
One
before
Right.
the
case in
case come
Barbados
up.
from 2013, huh? 10 years.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Good
so
point.
you are dedicated manpower to actually go into cyberspace and stay there literally. And let's
Got
look
it.
at it that way, because you don't know when this case is going to go to court, and it's going to keep putting off and putting off and putting off, and then you have some, even in there you hear witnesses start complaining about being abused by some of the personnel who are,
Supposed to be
you know
protecting them.
who's
To
supposed to be
protect them.
protecting them, especially women. You hear
Yeah.
these stories. Of course, it's always denied by the head of the unit, or the officers. But then I would think that someone would not want to put themselves out like that in public, knowing that they're on a program,
True. Yeah.
and complain about the lack of food, the lack of a lot of broken promises.
Hmm.
So
They
it's the same situation then, how they were trafficked and find themselves in the same
Back
situation
to the
when they're being
same
Yeah,
protected
ordeal.
yeah.
or protected,
Wow.
so to speak.
Yeah.
right. So for it's not a cookie cutter kind of situation here,
Yeah.
because eventually, and we've had cases like that here for other situations where witnesses get so fed up that they walk out of the program,
Of course.
and they get killed a week or two later,
Wow.
or you hear
Oh,
them,
right.
you know so it's yes, there's a witness protection program, and then there's a different level too, because remember, there are some people who are taken out of the country. It depends on the level of seriousness of their situation
Wow.
and the situation they're in. So there would be people who would be transported abroad, under you know, permission from the state, and instructions from the national security,
Yeah.
and so they have to be outside, and they have to come home when the case is called. So they too out there just hanging around waiting.
Waiting.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
So
so
that's
just
there.
picture
People are
that.
transported for protection purposes.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
Okay.
So just picture that. Picture you have to leave Barbados, you leave the living room and you have to go to the UK now, and because you witnessed something or you were rescued from a ring, and you have to be there indefinitely. You cannot contact family as you would like.
Yeah.
You cannot be on social media. You just have to be in a space just existing
Your life just
until
stop.
your
Yeah.
life just stops.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
that's
ain't even
right.
had the trial yet.
No.
And you haven't had the trial yet. So
Yes.
this is why some people just don't bother. This
Yeah.
is why some people, because when they hear the stories of and other people's experiences,
Mhm.
they just decide, why should I
Why
put
should I go through
myself through
that?
that? No, I
Yeah.
didn't see anything. No, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember where the place was. And you cannot doubt me that I cannot remember. I
Yeah.
just don't want to be a part of this. Let's just move on. Okay?
It's hard.
There's a lot there where you can see, you know, with the institutions and the agencies, there's so much failure. And
Yeah.
Kimberly, I wonder because oftentimes when the institutions and the agencies and the legislation are failing, a lot of times it goes into the community. And
Yeah.
the community organizations are the areas where they are doing a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the support alongside NGOs. I wonder what you have seen by way of having to come in and provide some of that support around victims.
Well, in terms of the work and being introduced to A21, they provide a lot of community services and a community forum because they have safe houses in about 12 different countries. You know, I mean, they don't
Mhm.
have one here in Trinidad, but what they do is what they try to do is once they save these women, they bring them into these safe houses and they start to restore, and there's a rehabilitation process, and they try to get them into a place where they feel safe. Then they could speak about it, and then they could, there's like different steps. As a child growing up, you have to kind of start them all over again to speak because their trust is completely severed. It is completely severed. So the things that A21 does in terms of, which is what I take on with the work,
Mhm.
they use us as a voice, in the community to bring awareness. So that's what we would do. We would go to our town, the areas, the airport, anywhere that will allow us to be a voice. And
Right.
that's in terms of us being the community. We're not an official government agency, but
Mhm.
we based A21 of Freedom of PT is a voluntary, you could say it's an NGO basically here. And like you said, we go into different communities. It doesn't matter the community, whether they're upstanding or not, because
Mhm.
everyone does not know everything. And so we
No.
are there just to give a word, to show you the red flags, the signs, simple things that you can look out for on your daily basis while you're in your car, while you're traveling, you're commuting on an airplane. There's so many things. You could be in a hotel and spot something and make a call to our counter-trafficking unit. So community as well as officials is so crucial because we all have a part to be able to play in ending this or even helping, just one call, looking at one detail could could make a difference. We could save one life, as my motto is, teach one, reach one, save
Has the
one.
community generally been responsive and receptive to your?
Yeah,
Because we like to say, "Oh, they ain't got nothing to do with me. I
Mhm.
ain't getting myself involved,
yeah,
boy."
yeah. Do you know, at the beginning, a lot of people were scared for me, I should say, and they were
Oh.
warning me, and they were like, Kimberly, you can't
I
be
was going to
out
ask
there.
you that as well. What about
Mhm.
yourself and your safety?
Yeah, I wouldn't lie to you. I started this actually by the grace of God and a word that I got from God. So I knew that He was covering and protecting me, but I still had to use wisdom.
Yeah.
I still have to be careful. I still have to be cautious. I wasn't just going to be, yes, God is protecting me. I can do what I want. It was nothing like that. But I still rest assured that I had a mission. I had a purpose. I had something to do getting into this. And that's
Yeah.
what I did. And I actually never had fear. And when people tried to speak that fear into me, I had to cut it down because it would have distracted me
Yeah.
with what I had to do. And we would go out there. I mean, I was on news stations, Facebook. I was telling Mark earlier, I was on so many forums. Like, it was mind blowing. And it was really good because people were receptive. People wanted to know, people wanted to learn. I hosted shows and stuff in Movie Town where people came in and, just like how we're doing it here, we're in a
Yeah.
theater, we watch a movie, people asking questions about their children and school, and people were actually concerned. And that is where it said, all right, this is the time we can infiltrate, we can talk to people because they actually seen it. They've seen so many people going missing and there's no answers. And that's when I found, when I got into it, I realized people want to ask, but they're fearful.
Wow.
They want to know,
Right.
but they're fearful and they're afraid this will happen to them. But what's going to happen when every day we're seeing someone missing?
If it
Someone's
comes home.
missing and you're not even finding them. What's the response for that? So now people actually think maybe they've been trafficked. I see on my Facebook page every day people posted this woman was taken outside her, miles outside her children's school. It's been 8 years, nothing. There was out there that she was taken to Venezuela. And this thing is something that becomes repetitive. But like what God said, I must say after getting involved with the counter-trafficking unit, they have been doing a lot. I mean, I was not aware of the counter-trafficking unit until when I became a part in 2016. I had no idea about them. But they've been doing a lot. Alana's been doing a lot. Like God said, she's very passionate. She drives and she does
But
a
that's
lot. So
part of the
when I,
problem too, though, that you didn't know about them, and how many people across the
yeah,
regions
didn't
don't
know
know
about,
about
yeah,
those units. And even if you hear about it, you still think, they're doing their job. There's nothing for me to do to help them because
yeah,
that's law enforcement. So let them do what they need to do. But it feels to me from listening to you three like the only way that we could combat this human trafficking scourge is if we as a
together,
community pay attention
yeah.
and get involved. And involved could mean different things to different people. Not
Absolutely.
everyone may
Different
not
levels,
be like yourself, but just picking up the phone and say, I see something here. I
yes.
see a house board up, and every day I see six or so women coming out, and some man coming in on a motorcycle and stuff. It's just being aware and being willing to get involved.
And then the PSAs too, the
Yes,
counter
those
trafficking
are very
unit too.
powerful.
I've gotten the yeah, we collaborated with the CTU, and we came up with and I sent you out a couple of those PSAs yesterday as well. I don't know if you got those too. But this is what is on rotation on national television. We also have it rotated on our radio program as well when we take breaks. That, so we constantly remind people. As I said, it's
Out
not.
there.
Yes,
Mm.
and you see, and it's not that is something that you can touch, but it's happening in plain sight, and it's hidden in plain sight. Sorry, and so this is why I think, because some people are not affected directly, that we just go on living
Brush
our
it off.
daily lives, and until it happens to a member of your family, and so there are a number of things now, constantly we've been warning people about answering ads in the newspaper,
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yes.
There
Job.
are people disguise themselves as massage parlors, and
Right.
they've it's proven that they up to no good as well.
Yeah.
So you have to be so careful. Even what Kimberly spoke about, um delivering doing deliveries now, that the pandemic it's created an avenue for other things.
Yes.
And so that if my wife or I have to buy anything, I will let the person know, okay, meet me by opposite the police station at
Yes.
the
Yes.
mall,
Yes.
to
Yep.
give them that comfort, that
Mm-hmm.
meet them in a supermarket car park or something. But then there are people who have been putting up stuff for sale, and they're going into certain areas, and when they reach there, they get robbed,
Yes.
and they're lucky even if they make it back out alive.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy who
Careful.
got killed, and he went to
Yes.
sell, a
A
cell
phone
phone.
that we, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they
and
took back the phone and the money.
yeah. So you have to be, listen. You know why some people too. It is so easy now, guys, to get bumped off. Let me just use that word. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
so easy that,
Yeah.
remember, there are a number of people running around this place too, hooked on class A drugs,
Yeah.
and they, if they have a supplier, and all they have to do for the supplier is provide, put down hits, they will do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it is so easy, to get taken out. So this is why some people now just not saying anything, because we will have, let's say I make a report on I just use Andre for example. So I go to the station and I make a report, right?
Mm-hmm.
And thinking, well, my report will be kept in confidence because, and then the person will go by Andrea and say, listen, tell a fella come by you, we talking about you here, just make a report on you.
No.
And next thing you know,
Jeez,
Andre
wow.
showing up by my door and
Mm.
tell, so, oh, so you're going to the police? All right, okay
Mm-hmm.
then.
Trust,
Mm-hmm.
trust
And
Mm-hmm.
upon your life.
that has
Wow.
happened many times,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Wow.
so,
Yeah.
so people,
Mm-hmm.
some
So,
people just not
Fair.
bother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
see
yeah, yeah. Well, it's
as
just
sad as
so
it is.
much.
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah.
you we need to
Yep,
unpick
Yeah.
to
you
kind of
have to be a
almost
brave
start
soul.
over to make to root this thing out of the
Mm-hmm.
region. But Olivia, tell us a little bit about your organization as well and how you got started and what you've been doing to help support some of the women, especially who find themselves in these situations.
Yes, I established the Caribbean Anti-Human Trafficking Foundation in 2020, and then along came the pandemic because we were conducting research and so we recognized that there was nothing in Barbados, no NGO that was actively working to support them. But it took on a life of its own during the lockdowns, and we ended up having to care for over 450 families, getting supplies and so forth, humanitarian supplies to them, and we worked with government and other organizations to get that done. So I was happy that we could help them because not only the traffic victims, but migrants who were in the country either without status,
Documentation.
regularized status. They had problems because they couldn't get unemployment benefits. They couldn't go to the welfare. There was nowhere for them to turn, and there was a lockdown. And out of that, those Guyanese women, Jamaican women, other women began to identify girls for me. And then there were the Barbadian girls who started to complain that the Jamaican girls and they were making this money and they're not making any money in the
Mm.
clubs or in the houses when during the lockdown. And they began to show me out of jealousy, more or less, they began to
Ah,
show me who these girls were. And
different
then I would
motive.
approach them and
Right.
we found quite a few of them that way. We were able to assist some of them to get back to Jamaica, two to Trinidad, and some back to Guyana. But the most opted to stay. Um, what we found that's interesting that a lot of the traffickers or the recruiters and the facilitators are women. Law
Mm.
enforcement continue to look
Okay.
at
It's interesting.
men
Look for men.
increasingly are more vicious than men, more
Mm.
vicious beyond the men are the women who are running these trafficking rings. And an
Oh wow.
unfortunate thing has happened in Guyana that I hope we avoid in the other countries as lessons learned is when the police made raids, they rounded up the perpetrators and the victims and end up hosting them in the same place. So
Ouch.
imagine
Wow.
being locked down with you the victim with your perpetrator.
Again, but
Be-
that's because they treat the victims as criminals.
no, because law
That's
enforcement
women.
perception is that a woman is not
All women
really
are victims.
a trafficker.
A
Mm-hmm.
trafficker. Yeah.
But we have this, we have to change our perceptions of what who a trafficker is, what a victim looks like, and what the crime looks like, because most of the time officers come across the crime because they've gotten a call to go to a drug bust or to go in
Mm-hmm.
a brothel. So we have to look at that. But we were talking about the community is relatively unaware of what things to look for. But some of the things we need to know is that a person can be of any age, any nationality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're moved from
Mm-hmm.
brothel to brothel. They're
Mm-hmm.
escorted wherever they go. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
have tattoos. You see the girls with a lot of tattoos.
They brand
That is
them.
a form of branding that tells the traffickers
Mm-hmm.
who this girl belongs to.
Belongs to.
And
Oh.
normally in the hotel sector, in the high-end places, you find girls with a barcode or tattoo the back of their neck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Mm-hmm.
see that a barcode or tattoo in the hair at the back of the neck, It's usually telling you who
Red
or
flag.
which gang owns this person. They tend to sleep where they work. They're not allowed freedom to go out. You will see them living or traveling in groups. And again, once upon a time, you will find a man going down to Venezuela, Colombia, Haiti, wherever, and bringing up girls. So he's walking through the airport with two or three girls. What's happening now is that they're sending other girls to bring up the girls. So at the border entry point, officers are just seeing a group of girls moving together and thinking nothing of it. But they're being brought in that way. They tend to have very few pieces of clothing. If I'm coming to your country for 6 months, I should have some sort of clothes with me. They have
Yeah.
no cash of their own, and they tend not to be able to show you documents. They're very, very fearful if somebody says, do you want to talk to immigration or police? So all of these are indicators. For you, a mother, aunt, sister, father in a house, when you see a child online and forming a relationship, or a teenage daughter forming a relationship with somebody that's older and richer, but it seems to be some manipulation and control happening there, that's secure. People giving them gifts for no reason. The relationship suddenly taking a negative turn. The man is taking the girl out on the street corner to make money. They want to share your intimate images online. You're being taken to a job with very, very little details of payment up front, how you're going to be paid up front. And they're living in very brutal conditions. All of those things you have to look out for.
Yeah.
How do you engage a victim? We have to respect. If a person says, don't take me to the police and don't call the police, you don't do, despite the circumstance or how badly beaten you might see them, because that person is saying to you, if you involve the police, they're going to kill my child at home, my mother back home.
So what do you do then?
So, so it becomes very difficult. Sometimes, I've found myself in heart wrenching situations where you just have to let it go and hope
Wow.
for the best and give them the immediate care you can give them. Fix
Right
the
there and then.
bruises,
Yeah.
give them some money, do the immediate. But I've had government officials saying, well, why are you not giving? I've had a large tussle. Why are you not carry these girls to the police? They want to get deported or give them to the police. Why are you not telling the police? You have to respect that person's
Yeah.
right to say, I don't want to be taken to the police because my family might be harmed back
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
So how do you engage these
Tough place,
victims?
man. Tough.
Yeah, you keep talking and try to make that person very comfortable. You talk to them in the language that they understand. If they're from the street, you have to use street language because they're only going
Okay.
open to you if you can meet them and at their level. And you have to be sensitive and pay attention to our cultural backgrounds. A lot of
That's a very
cultural
interesting point.
nuances come into play. We have our Indian women in our population. They're socialized very differently. And while, say, a black woman in our community is can almost, I wouldn't want to say less sensitive, but will handle the situation differently if they're seen as being raped or so. For an Indian woman, it's a very different thing. She wants to commit suicide because of how her culture has brought
Yeah.
her up.
Yeah, of
And so,
course.
how you handle the victims are very, very important. And so, you have to also not overwhelm them with trying to ask too many questions, but respect where they are.
This is
Wow.
interesting. Good stuff.
So,
Absolutely incredible.
Olivia, I have a sorry, guys. So, Olivia, would you say that because these women are so conditioned, we need to have the right people equipped to deal with them, not just every and anybody? I mean, like, say for example, myself, you would need someone that, like you said, knows culture, knows background, knows about human trafficking, knows about psychology. It can't just have anyone come to these girls because you have to, I think I'm asking, right? It's also, would you have to be seriously trained to deal
Wow.
with these girls because you don't know what they've been through. They may have been through 30 years of sexual abuse, and before that, a father that left, a mother that stole them, then they ended up in trafficking. So, my question is, who are the right people to deal and to rehabilitate these people? Wouldn't you say we need a team of people to help bring these people back or to some sort of normalcy or some type of life?
Well, in the Caribbean, we just don't have the resource capacity, and all of us there's economic crisis, so we have to do the best with what we have, which means we can create design training that is trauma and victim informed, victim centered, and trauma informed. So the law enforcement officers should be trained how to handle the sensitivities surrounding a victim, handling a victim. The social worker, the doctor, the nurse. The training should be across the board because we just cannot have dedicated persons. We need a dedicated community to deal with this. And you are correct. A victim has a lack of trust. They have anger. They're shame. They're guilty. They're confused. They're depressed. They usually feel helpless. A lot of them have flashbacks. There are a lot of sexually transmitted diseases and pregnancies. I had to accompany a young lady for termination because she wanted to kill herself if she couldn't get her termination. I couldn't tell her what's right or wrong for her. I had to facilitate the arrangement for her because she was willing to kill herself because she had children in Trinidad already, 3 children that she hadn't seen for the 4 years she was in Barbados, being in jail and then being around. And she could not go home to tell her child's father how she ended up pregnant because he didn't know anything of what had happened to her in Barbados. And then we have sexually transmitted diseases. What's happening is that there are recurring sexual transmitted diseases among these girls. I've had some who they will go to the family planning in Barbados where they're treated for STDs, but they will be back there the following 2 weeks or so after being given medication. And when I talk to them, the girls will say, I cannot, they will take the medication, but they cannot ask the men to take the medication or tell the men that they're infected. They might get beaten. They will be out of money. And it's a problem. So you see those girls going back month after month with different sexual or the same sexual transmitted disease. And sexual transmitted diseases is high among them. Okay?
Wow, this is disgusting just listening to it.
It is. It is.
It is.
Wow.
Heart-wrenching.
Well, look, let's one of the things that I would like to do is, just shed a little bit of light on the trafficking unit that we've been talking about in Trinidad, because I think it would be good to give people a view.
Thank you for calling the Counter-Trafficking Unit of Trinidad and Tobago. How may I help you?
The Trinidad and Tobago's Counter-Trafficking Unit, also called the CTU, was established through an Act of Parliament, the Trafficking in Persons Act, Chapter 1210, or the TIPS Act. We are a specialized, multidimensional, civilian-led agency under the Ministry of National Security, responsible for the daily operations of the counter-trafficking response of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. We implement government policies developed by the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons, effective identification of victims and witnesses, prevention of trafficking, protection and prosecution, all through effective partnerships. We also operate a toll-free, anonymous hotline, 800-4288 for CTU, where the public can report possible cases of human trafficking. We screen and interview persons to identify possible victims of trafficking. We refer identified victims to appropriate agencies for support and care. Specially trained, positively vetted police officers working in the CTU gather evidence, investigate, and prosecute human trafficking cases. In keeping with our public education mandate, we also deliver training to our many stakeholders and partners. We collaborate with local, regional, and international organizations, NGOs, churches, and faith-based organizations to educate and warn the public on how to recognize human trafficking. We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Wow.
It's so
I'm,
wonderful to see that, huh?
I'm really proud to see this.
That's
Yeah.
great work.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
guys. Thank you for accepting it. You
That's
know,
great work.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that is ongoing. That is ongoing.
Building.
And I could tell you the counter trafficking unit works 365 days. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even Christmas Day and all they work, and it's all part of the operation. And let me tell you something. To take on this task,
It's not easy.
this is not a wash your foot and jump in scenario here.
Yeah.
It's either you're in or you're out. I think, I mean, if I was asked to join the unit, let's say 10 years ago, yeah, I probably would have. But from how I see the work now and the way I schedule my time now, I will do the prevention, and because the kind of hours that they keep, I close to retirement, so
It's necessary.
I will do the prevention work. I've joined with them.
You
I've
create an
committed myself
awareness.
to that. Yes, I'm creating awareness, but they're
But
doing the dirty job. This is not an easy job. That
I
the
can
person
imagine.
you saw there
yeah,
was Miss Wheeler, who introduced that video.
I was also thinking there with the CTU, what sort of screening and steps are put in place to ensure that the CTU itself is not infiltrated or corrupted.
Compromised.
Yeah,
Compromise.
Say again.
yeah,
Go ahead,
what
though.
steps are put in place to ensure that it's not compromised, the CTU? Because you could
Oh,
imagine someone in there receiving a call and being able to give a tip off to a network,
Right, working on the inside basically as a
yeah, as an insider.
well, I mean, no unit is infiltration proof. No unit I mean, even in the police service, there would be guys who you put them in charge of victims, and then they too get emotionally attached, and they cross the line.
That's fair.
Right? Let me just leave it at that. And but as soon as the head is shown, they take, and then too they employ polygraph testing and vetting. They're very serious with their vetting,
Hmm.
and yeah, they go through a fine tooth comb. This is why they are able to pull out the bad eggs immediately, because they have there's an MO that eventually happens, that actually give themselves away, so or give it away. So but the polygraph testing is part of the whole process too as well. They're very strict with that, and no unit will this unit will not tolerate any officer they know complicit and keep him in the unit. That is not going to happen.
Wow.
As much as I know about them, no, they're very, very, very strict about this.
that's a
And
lot.
I think this is why Miss Wheeler, they put a civilian to run the organization. You understand the concept here?
All
Yeah, the
right.
civilian led. I thought that was
Yes,
interesting. Yeah.
yes, because you have a civilian who cannot be compromised, who cannot be bought, and there is no blue wall of silence as far as she's concerned.
Yeah.
You
That's
know what I mean?
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
And
that's
that
what makes it more powerful.
and that question there on screen about how the unit is funded, presumably it's funded through central government resources. Is
Yes,
that right? Yeah.
yes, it is, and but they're still a small team, and they can. I mean, you remember they're in charge of safe houses as well,
Yeah.
because there are
Yeah, that's
people
true.
who are housed in different parts of the country, unsafe houses. I think this unit should be the budget. Every year, every 5 years,
Increased.
every year there's a budget for each unit of different ministries, and each ministry, and I think their budget should be tripled, because of the kind of work
Yes.
that
Okay.
they actually running. It's like they're running how okay, we have home for children, you have a hospital, remember they have to feed people every day, and take care of their personal needs
Yeah.
every single day.
Can you imagine?
So
But
you're talking about a unit that needs that constant injection of funds and staff.
Yeah.
yeah, the comment on the screen is interesting because I was going to ask
Yeah.
that question as
Absolutely.
well because
That's actually
every
my mother.
every Is that your mother?
Hi, mom.
I was wondering if it was
I
a Trini
was
living in Barbados. Okay,
because
okay.
the more we speak, the more I see a need that this can't be each individual island doing something on their
No,
own.
no.
They've got to be some interconnectivity in order to. These networks are vast, and they could be
Yeah.
running north to south in the Caribbean and east to west.
Yes.
So how much intergovernmental um, assistance or working or cooperation are we seeing? Are we seeing any? I don't know if it's a fair question for you, any of you guys, but
Yeah,
It
yeah,
needs a
are we
CARICOM
seeing?
level
yeah.
intervention, doesn't it?
No,
Yes.
there's CARICOM Impact that's responsible for intelligence in CARICOM. They do work closely. JRCC, their communications team, work closely in terms of information gathering, information sharing, and they share the office with UN Drugs and Crime Office of Drugs and Crime. That information is shared with them. The U.S. government. There's also the RSS, the Regional Security System.
Yeah. Mhm.
But the truth is that we do need more information sharing and
Yeah.
sharing the information in a timely manner. Also, there is legislation and there are protocols for how the court, the judiciary should share information cross border. But the fact is, a lot of the judges don't know it. And so we
Wow.
need to train the judges in the different instruments they have for cross-border cooperation. Law enforcement seems to know sufficiently. However, most countries see this as my sovereign interests. This is I have the sovereign right to deal with this, and it is a transnational crime. And until we move away from this is a Barbados problem or a Trinidad problem, I
Yeah.
recognize it's a Caribbean wide problem.
Absolutely.
We're not going to get very far. And the stark example of that is that in my working with the young women who are suspected victims of trafficking over the last 2 years, we recognize that there are clearly established networks of trafficking throughout the region. What we found is that starting in Jamaica, the girls are brought to Barbados. They go from Barbados to Antigua and Barbuda. They go on to Virgin Islands. And then they come right back around. And so these girls are moved from island to island
Wow.
every
I could
few
only
months.
imagine.
And so it requires, therefore, a transnational response. Also, I saw you mention, Mark, I think you were about to mention about CARICOM. 2018, 2019, it was a topic on the heads of government's agenda. And I was part of a team that was asked to write a report on the state of trafficking in CARIFORUM. But since then, I think we need to resensitize and re-energize at the CARICOM level.
Oh
Uh,
man.
put this issue on the table.
We keep
Um,
coming to that point all the time.
we keep it's as if it's a step system, not just a step system. They're not dealing with it at that level, and we need to deal with that. And I think that COVID, coming out of the COVID pandemic, is especially a useful time because this is the time to press the reset button.
Yeah.
So we've had time to
Right.
assess. We need to assess the impact COVID has had on the progress. We know there's
Yeah.
been fallback. For example, in Guyana, increased number of persons were coming across the border from Venezuela, but because you had the COVID happening, law enforcement was not rounding up anybody.
Yeah.
And so we know that trafficking, we have lost some progress in the steps made, but now we are at a good point today to start to review, reset, and move forward.
Yeah.
I like that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I mean, I feel
There's
like
a
I need to
whole
go
lot
and,
more.
and, and further educate myself
Absolutely.
more. And I hope that everyone else feels the same way as well, because this is again, so much of it, from everything I've heard here, so much of it hinges on our attitudes, though. I feel towards certain things in our society, whether it be sexual relations or the attitude towards young girls. Sometimes you might hear a young girl disappear, but the community can say she didn't never no good, and we don't know what happened, but something else
Fireman.
happening.
Famous.
Exactly. It is so much of our attitudes playing to help perpetuate this thing.
Yeah.
And let
That
me throw in this one, Andre.
you
And
know,
guys, let me throw in this one. Allow me to throw in this one.
go ahead.
There's another thing now of movement from one part of Trinidad to go to the next. So let's say someone born and grew up in a village in Point Fortin. You grew up in a village, the community, the village, everybody knows everybody. But then this person now leaves, and like I migrated from San Fernando to Port of Spain, and we live in Diamond in Diego Martin, all right? Now here's what happens. We pretend to have this community watch group, this WhatsApp group where everybody watching each other's back. But then I don't know half the people on the chat because
Right.
most of them would pass me straight. I have a next
Right.
door neighbor who
But neighborhood water.
yeah, that's a joke because I have and this couple of weeks ago a number of another couple moved in, and they would come outside and they stare you in the face and don't even say good morning. And the next door neighbor, we live next door to them for 10 years, and the lady never even said morning once. So
Wow.
if there's something onto what happening there, I know I ain't business because so if I see somebody jumping a wall, I would say, yeah, she's too damn disrespectful. Me calling she because because we don't longer have that community oriented
Yeah.
living.
Yeah.
We have people living in one community. That's a totally
There's
different
no
thing.
Really
conversation
interesting point, boy.
in the WhatsApp group and on the street, like what Gus is saying. There's no communication face to face, but you're watching my back in a WhatsApp
Yes,
community
yes,
neighborhood group. It
and
makes
yeah,
absolutely no sense.
it has to be a joke, and I'm saying if
Yeah.
I am passing these people who supposed to be watching my back, I meet them in supermarket, I don't know them, but oh, we're on a WhatsApp group together, neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
Give me a break. I mean, what is that? You know what I mean? How you watching my back? And so then what they did, they distributed, these horns, what you call them, air horns.
Yes.
They tell
Neighborhood.
everybody to buy an air horn
For
and so in
emergency.
case for emergency in case something happen. Okay.
Solid.
So so I blow my air horn now and everybody's supposed to come running up by me. But the whole point is I am watching people's back who don't even talk to me. And that's
Yeah.
that's
I think it's a
that's what amuses me.
responsibility.
Fair enough.
I think it's a choice. It's a choice that we individually have to make because at the end of the day, this is our community. This is where we live. I don't expect God or any one of us here to be like a human trafficking police or at the corner saying, all right, are you a trafficker? Screen your background. Let me see what you do. What is your job? But I think we have to every day consciously make a choice to say if we see something, and just what Miss Mila said in that video, is a simple call, and like for example, if I may, I had a friend call me and she said, Kimberly, I just moved into this neighborhood, it's a gated compound. She said, I've made several calls to the police station and no one takes me on. She described to me what's happening there in the nighttime. And listen, I said, something is not right there. Women and men going in out of an apartment at all hours of the night, strange cars coming parking up at the street, all of these different things happening. It's someone's son, reputable person. She spoke to the landlord. She called the police, and when she called me, I directed her to the Counter-Trafficking unit and the number and so on. And she was even afraid to even call that anonymous hotline. And I said, listen, you called me, but I can't call the Counter-Trafficking unit on your behalf. You have more details. You have more information. You can relate to them what you are seeing. Even the landlord is in on it because, remember, he's renting to the place. He's living on the compound. Obviously, you are seeing the activities that are happening. So I told her, you have a choice to make, and I'm not going to be upset with you with what you make, but you have to think for your safety because you're living on this compound as well. So I think it's really about a personal choice, or if we choose to turn a blind eye, and look how close to home it was. Her compound that she just moved on with a year lease. She can't tell the landlord, I want to leave now because of this suspicious activity going on. You understand?
Yeah.
So I think it's an urgency. And if we don't act, and like I said, the law official, she made several calls. Not one police ever came to question, look, call. So I said, call the CTU, call the hotline, and they will intervene. You will get some sort of action.
No, we just look. Oh, this has been such an eye-opening conversation, and
It's like
We need a part two.
yeah, even at some point we do need a
Yeah.
part two because I'm really keen to hear when Olivia is finished doing her research and writing her papers and stuff to hear her findings and solutions or
I
perhaps
learned
and
so
stuff.
much. I
I'm
learned
really
so much
keen.
from her.
Well,
And Olivia is a
what I've written about now is the perceptions of law enforcement and the fact
Mm-hmm.
that how law enforcement perceive a victim of the crime is one of the main reasons why we're not getting convictions in the law court, because we have this stereotyping of people that come from certain countries. If they come from Guyana, if they come from Jamaica, if they come from Venezuela, we stereotype them. And in stereotyping them, you decide that their case not important. Like she said, sometimes
Yeah.
there are a bunch of Jamaican girls over here, they're fighting, and so the police does not come. Oh, Jamaican girls always fighting. See? So you have things
Wow.
like that
A
happening.
stigmatism against a stigma against people.
That's what I'm saying. And then you see the girls who might be prostituting. As far as they're concerned, every girl they see from another country, she's a prostitute, and they're judged by the way they're dressed. So
and they're
they're
doing it
never
willingly.
yes, and they're not interested in the backstory. Also,
Yeah.
one of the things I have found is that the police sometimes can't be bothered because
Mhm.
when you are going to start a human trafficking case, as we've said before, it tends to be lengthy and involving a lot of things. So the quickest thing the police will do instead of continue investigation is to call immigration and hand over those persons to immigration to get them
to get them
out,
deported.
Your
to
problem.
get
Yeah.
them deported. But I will say, under the Geneva Convention, Article 31, all countries must, under the refoulement law, if a person is identified as a traffic victim, they have a legal obligation to let that person reside within the country and not deport them.
Right.
And a lot of the officials seem not to know the laws surrounding that. Because the first thing we do is put the problem on a plane and send it back home. It will always come back in another form.
In another
And
form,
so,
yeah.
training, relevant training. In the Caribbean, there's always favoritism and nepotism. So you will always see a certain officers at all the trainings. The other people never get to go. And when
Okay.
these officers come back, they don't share any information. Really and truthfully, is the officer who's going to go to Nelson Street in the red light cities, who's on the street at night, the constable who's walking up and down Bridgetown, who will see something.
Yeah.
He needs to know what he's seeing.
Look,
He
yeah.
needs to be able to frame it. So I'm calling for wider training. And also I'm calling for specialized training. We are sending our people to school, but are we educating them in a relevant way? We have officers with wonderful degrees, but how many officers can conduct an investigation competently? Do they know how to collect evidence? Do they know how to manage the evidence? And the
Yep.
judiciary, we have a lot of judges who don't know anything about the human trafficking act of their country.
That's incredible.
And if the judges who are supposed to take decisions don't know
Yeah.
the legislation and they do not
Yeah.
understand or know what a whole trafficking situation is supposed to look like, well, we will have a lot of 2013s happening.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Tremendous.
Look, Kimberly, Gareth, Olivia, Thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon and really illuminating this whole issue for us and for our audience as well, and what's happening across the region regarding human trafficking. We've been through what to look for, what is human trafficking, and how we can also prevent ourselves from being trafficked. We talked about that a little bit. It's been a fascinating conversation, and
Yes.
I think we're gonna have to have it at some point in time again. And I hope you guys will be willing to come back, because we're putting your stuff up there as well. There's Olivia's stuff, Caribbean Anti-Human Trafficking Foundation.
Well, I would like to suggest something, Andre.
Go ahead.
Miss Wheeler could not have attended this afternoon because of her schedule, and it was kind of short notice for her. But I think if you guys do it in time, you just need Miss Wheeler alone. Forget Kimberly and I.
Yes, she definitely, she definitely will give you so much information, and she's fantastic. And
Listen.
God is right. You don't need
Yeah,
us. She
you
only
don't
one
need
is
us.
package.
Exactly.
I think
me let me tell you.
could cover a lot then.
I agree. I've worked with Olana and she's
Yes,
excellent.
she's wonderful.
Yeah,
She's
for real.
very kind. She's filled with information. You see, passion. You
Yes.
hear it when she speaks, and she can answer anything.
Any
Absolutely
question.
anything you need.
Andrew, you will have
Okay.
to fill that. Well, I thought it was a mug, but it looked like a jug. Though.
So your part two will be excellent.
You
You may
fill
need
that
a
jug
note
to the
and a new card.
Gareth, you're coming back for true. I go with Miss Wheeler.
You know to fill that jug, man. Trust me.
I like big
information.
mugs, man. I got my mug here with only water though, just water.
Call it a mug.
You have your turn, man. Your turn.
Hilarious. Well, look, guys, thank you so much. And you can see our
Thank you
audience
for
as
having
well.
us. It was great. I was very much informed as well, even though I know some information. Olivia, thank you so much. I learned so much for you. I definitely would love to chat with you
Yes.
even more off of this forum. I think this whole conversation, it reminded me of why I got involved in this in 2016 in the first place. COVID did give it a damper, and I was not able to host my walks for a whole 2 years. It was hard for me to even wrap my head around it. But I hope and I pray that this year I would be able to accomplish, even greater things. God has been to my walks and stuff, and I mean, the turnout is great. My first walk had almost 200 people. I think I and all was taken away at how many people came out, So thank you for having me, Mark, and the
Anytime.
living room team. I enjoy this conversation, and I'm in my living room. So, it was good. It was good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I know we have a lot of viewers on because I'm seeing a lot of people that I know commenting on the forum.
Do you have
Thank
a
you all.
21
It
freedom
was a
walking?
very enlightening and fantastic time for me. And
Yes.
let us all remember that we are our brother's keeper, and let's always continue
Yes,
to do
definitely.
right.
Definitely.
Agreed. Well, look, thank you so much, guys, for coming and joining us here in the living room today. Really, really, really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. You're welcome. And Kimberly, maybe you should introduce the 821 Freedom Walk in Barbados. Is it there already? You
Right.
guys have it there?
I'm not certain if it's there, but we could definitely talk, Olivia. And the
sure.
more walks we have, it's better because, like I said, they have over 400 walks every year in October. So I'm sure the numbers
I've been on
increased.
two myself. 821 walks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, I'm now in Canada and I'll be here for a while, but I will be happy to put you in touch with some of our other directors and some other entities.
Okay, but you can even join the walks in Canada. I know 2 people that host walks in Canada.
Good. When it's not so cold, eh?
Yes, when it's not so cold.
October might not be the best time in Canada. Well, guys,
Thank you so much,
thanks,
guys.
guys.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much, guys.
Okay,
Thank you.
take care.
Well, that was a real informative conversation, guys.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that was absolutely fabulous.
Scary. I gotta admit, it's scary in some in some areas there, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, really is. I mean, the fact that Olivia's organization, they're the Foundation 2020, right? She started that in 2020, and when you start to think of the history of human trafficking that we've had in the Caribbean that might have gone unnoticed, probably uninvestigated, and so on, and unhandled in a proper forum, it is really worrying.
Yeah, and I mean, I even think back to even myself and even my attitude on things, because I really think that's a huge issue for us as a region, our attitude towards some of our fellow West Indian people that we might see in
It is, yeah.
our country. We would close an eye to something because of our attitude towards those people, And I think back to, again, Barbados, just thinking an attitude towards Guyanese women or Guyanese men as well.
Men working on
therefore
construction site, that sort of stuff.
Construction site. People were saying they're doing it cheap, so get the Guyanese fella. But then our workmen might say, nah, I can't stand these Guyanese men. We don't understand what they might be in. I'm not saying that every person was in that situation of trafficking. Just saying it could be, but we close ourselves to even the possibility or seeing it because of our attitude towards that group of people. And it seems like likewise as well in Trinidad, the attitude towards Venezuelans and Venezuelan women, that we close ourselves off because of our lack of empathy or lack of understanding towards, those people in our country.
Yeah.
So,
I think
issues
the two things that really struck me was the corruption from top to bottom, and how that is really, perpetuating the situation, and you can see no end in sight. And the second thing was when Olivia was talking about the lack of data, which this was a very scary conversation. But when you don't have data and you don't understand the evidence, you don't quite understand the scale of the challenge that you actually have in front of you. So as scary as this is, I can tell you, man, this is probably many times over scale in terms of its scale, because we don't have the deep enough understanding. And it is really tragic, because that is how you're going to have to fight some of this battle. You got to have the data.
No, I agree. Completely agree. Well, that was a real interesting conversation.
Yeah, man, we got to get them back.
We definitely got to get back. And we can get Miss Wheeler, as everyone says. So we can definitely, we were trying to get her, but as I say, it was just timing, didn't align. And it would be great to hear from other parts of the region as well. We were also trying to get someone from Jamaica in the conversation as well. But again, timings didn't align there to have them in. But this is a really interesting conversation to have. And I think it really must be had at a Caribbean level. Makes no sense just having it at a local level, because you're dealing with intra-regional networks here.
Yeah.
So just having it at a local level on your own, that conversation don't make any sense. But real fascinating conversation. But everyone, thank you guys for sticking with us for the last over 2 hours actually. Thanks a lot. If you haven't already, do us a favor. If you're on Facebook and this is your first time on We Global, hit like, hit follow, and just follow us, and just follow us in all the different conversations that we're having. Likewise on YouTube, we're on Instagram as well, and we're on Twitter. Global West Indians Global. Just follow, just become part of the network as we have these Caribbean conversations. For this specific one, if you haven't already, again, do us a favor and hit share. You guys saw it live, but let's bring other people into the conversation as well who might find it interesting to watch on playback. So do us a favor, everybody listening right now, hit the share button, tell people it was a good conversation, and let them have a listen as well so that they can be part of it as well. Thanks a lot for being with us today. From Philip, Mark, and myself, until next time.
I thought you'd have stuck there for a moment.
I forget one of the name there for a second.
Wow.